If you've used pivot tables and pivot charts in Excel before, you know that you can do something like this. You could create a pivot chart that breaks down total quantity by company. You could even go ahead and add a slicer and break this down further by product, for example. But what if you wanted your quantity to be in the slicer instead? So something like this. You want the ability to select your KPI. You don't want it to be fixed. This way you can select between quantity, product count, and number of orders by company. You could actually use any KPI of your choice here. You don't have to fix the KPI, keep it flexible in the slicer. This way you can add more interactivity to your reports and dashboards. So let's see how you can set this up. Here's my data set. I have company, order number, customer, product, and quantity. Now, first thing I'm going to do is to create a pivot table out of this, but I don't want a standard pivot table. I want to add it to the data model at the same time. Now, this is already formatted as a table. The table is called orders, and I'm going to go here and summarize this with a pivot table, but with a twist. So I'm going to place a check mark to add this data to the data model and click on OK. Now I can work with a Power Pivot. So if I go to the Power Pivot tab here, I can go to measures and add a new measure. What I need to do first is to create the KPIs that I need, and then I'll deal with the slicer part. So for the first measure, let's do the number of orders. In this case, all I need to do is to count the rows. So I'm going to go with count rows. I'm just going to hold down Control and use the mouse wheel to make this bigger so you can see better. The table here, so the only table I have is the orders table. Close bracket, and that's it. Click on OK, and that's my first KPI here. Now, ultimately, I want to see these by the company. So let's bring company name to the rows as well, so we can see the number of orders for each company. Now let's go ahead and add the second measure. So let's go back to new measure. For the second one, let's do distinct count of product. I need the distinct count, and for the column name, I want the product. So it's right here, close bracket, and that's it. Now next one, let's get the total quantity. All I need here is the sum function, and I just need to sum the quantity column, close bracket, and that's it. Okay, so I have my different KPIs set up, and of course you can add the proper number formatting to your measures as well. But because I'm not planning to use them separately, but instead I want to use them in another measure, I'm going to add my number formatting in the end. Now, as a next step, I want to create slicer selection out of this. So I'm going to set up a separate table with this. Now, you can also call them different as you want. I'll just give the table header a name. I'll call it view. Let's do number of orders the same. Then we'll just have product count, but this is going to be our distinct count of products. And let's just call this quantity sold. Okay, so now that we have our list, let's format it as an Excel table. My table has headers and OK. Under table design, let's call this view. Next, we need to add this to the data table. So let's go to the Power Pivot tab and add to the data model. Right, so we can see it, add it right here. That's our view table, and this is our original orders table with the measures that we created before. So what we want to happen is to create slicers out of this, and now we can because we've added it to the data model. So if I switch my view to all view, I can see the view table is right here, and we just have one column called view. So I'm going to right mouse click here and add this as a slicer. Right, so I have my slices available, but when I click on them, nothing happens, right? Because they're not connected to anything. As a next step, I need to create a measure that's going to grab which slicer I've actually selected. So let's go to measures, add a new measure. And for the table view, let's just add it right here. I'm going to call it slicer. All I need here is to figure out the value that was selected. So it should be identical to this value right here. and I can use the values function here. This one needs a table name or column name. Well, I just have one column in this table that's called view. That's all I need. Now I'm going to click on OK. So I can see quantity sold here. So I can see that it works. When I click on product count, we see this switch. But the problem is this. When I hold down Control and do a multi-select, I get this error. It tells me a table of multiple values was supplied where a single value was expected. It can't put multiple values in this cell. So what I need to do is to account for this to make sure that the user only selects a single value. So let's go back to the measures. Let's go to Manage Measures and let's edit this one. And what we're going to do here is add a condition. So we're going to say if only one single selection is made. And to do that, I can use the has one value function. I need a column name here. My column is called view. I'm going to close the bracket. So if it only has one value, then it should show the values. Basically, it will just show the one value. Otherwise, nothing. And we can just skip that argument because by default, I'm going to get blank back. I'm going to press check formula, no errors found, and click on OK and close. Now, everything works as before. And if I hold down Control and do a multi-select, everything is blank. So this works as expected. Now, most of the work is done. Next step is to make sure I get that switch so that if quantity sold is selected, I only see quantity sold. If product count is selected, I see product count. For that, I need another measure. So let's go and add a new measure. I'm going to add this to the orders table and call this KPI. And here for the formula, I can use an if function, or since we have three different things to account for, I'm going to use the switch function. The switch function needs an expression. So the expression that it's going to look at is this one. So it's going to look to see what the slicer measure is. So I'm just going to type in slicer. Then we need to take a look at its value and then give it the result that we want. So let's just work through it right here. So the first one is called number of orders. Then we have product count and quantity sold. So let's start with number of orders, but because this is text, I shouldn't forget the quotation marks. So number of orders. Then what I want to see is the number of orders measure, which is right here. Next, it's product count. And if that is the value, I want to see distinct count of product. That's my measure. Let's just start typing it in and we see it here. And last we have total quantity, but it's called quantity sold. And the measure is total quantity. Okay, so let's close bracket. Let's just double check. No errors found. And here I'm going to add a formatting to this. I want it to be a number. This should be a whole number, and let's use the thousand separator and OK. Now I have my KPI. Number of orders shows me only this column, product count, this column, and quantity sold is the total quantity sold. Okay, so now I can update my table here. It's kind of difficult to see. Everything is squashed together. Basically, I don't need anything from here except my KPI. So I can kick everything out, just leave KPI in there. And you can also safely ignore this message that relationship between tables may be needed. In this case, there is no relationship between them. There can't be anything. I'm just using this table for the purpose of the slicers. Okay, so we can safely ignore this. Now, as a last step, I'm just going to insert the chart. So just click somewhere inside the pivot table, go to Insert, and let's insert a column chart. Now, I'll just grab this chart. I'm going to hold down Control, grab this as well, press Control X, go to the Reporting tab here, and press Control V. Okay, so I have my chart and my slicer right here. Now, we can optimize the look of this, so I don't need this right here. I don't need the title. I'm going to right mouse click, add data labels. Let's remove the grid lines, remove the axis here. Let's make this bold. Use the shortcut key Control B. We can also remove these here. So for field buttons, let's just hide it all. Okay, so I'm going to give this some space. And now I want to bring this and put it over the chart. So let's right mouse click and bring it to the front and adjust this so that our slicers are in columns instead of in rows. So let's go to the slicer option here and increase the columns to 3. Just expand this so we can see everything better. Okay, so let's bring these up here. Now, I don't want to see this border, and I also don't need the title here. So let's go to the slicer settings and uncheck the display header and click on OK. Now, this gives us more space. Now, to remove that border here, we can quickly go to the slicer section here under slicer style. Just repeat the slicer that you have. So basically duplicate it. And for the duplicate version under whole slicer, go to format and remove that border. So click on none and then OK and OK. And of course, you can give your slicer a better name. When I still click away now, it's still there because the format doesn't automatically switch to the one that you created. It's still on the old one. You have to go and select the one that you just created. Okay, so now we have the number of orders. I can switch my view to product count or to quantity sold. So I've made my KPI selection dynamic. Another thing I can do is to sort this automatically in the sort order of my choice. I can go from largest to smallest. And this way I can see that for product count, the highest number of distinct products is sold by Meta Creations. In terms of number of orders is Bold Night, and quantity sold, it's also Bold Night. That's the DAX slicer trick you can use to get more functionality out of your slicers. But if you're completely new to DAX, this probably wasn't easy to follow. So I'm going to add some links below the video to help you get started with DAX. Also, let me know in the comments if you are already using Power Pivot in your reports. That's it for today. Many thanks for watching, and I'm going to see you in the next video.